Vikings Vent Line. What's going on? Happy Sunday. It's Declan Goff here. We're starting a little early this evening on Vikings Vent Line because we had some breaking Vikings news that just went down. Anthony Barr will be restructuring his contract with the Minnesota Vikings. This is according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. The Vikings are working on a restructured contract that reduces his $12.3 million salary, making him a free agent in 2022. This will help Minnesota get more cap space, and it will give Barr a little closer to free agency. Now, we were going to have our guys Derik, Arjun, and Zack join us for Vikings Vent Line to start, but for whatever reason, a couple of guys who I know very well decided, whoa. We know it's your show, Declan. This is your pet project, but you know what? We're just gonna come in here, grab a couple Corona Hard Seltzers, and give our takes first before we get the three real Vikings fans on to give their takes on Anthony Barr. We'll talk some NFL draft, and we'll talk a little NFL free agency. So without further ado, this feels really good to say. Let me introduce Mackey and Judd here on Vikings Vent Line.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I forgot my title belt.
You gave this one to me if it helps. So it was yours.
That's true. That is my title belt.
Yeah.
What are you doing there?
Why'd you give it away?
Well, I was cleaning out the office in the Twin Cities, and a couple things weren't going to make the move, including the bat phone and the WWE title belt. And so
no.
It's like passing the torch onto my young protege, Declan Goff, giving him the WWE title belt and the bat phone.
So what? So you're like Triple H passing on the game per se, and
you're like Randy Orton or Dave Bautista, and at some point you're going to kick my ass on pay-per-view. Is what's going to happen.
Yes, I've actually thought about this numerous times, so that actually works out really well.
Yeah. Have we seen figures yet on this Anthony Barr? So we know that he's going to save the Vikings some amount of money, the salary cap, and that's what the Vikings gain. And then I would assume these reports from Jeremy Fowler are true, and that what he wants then is, okay, I'll give you guys a little salary cap relief, but then I want to hit free agency and get a bunch of guaranteed money from like a 3-4 defense after 2021. So, Judd, what are you seeing and hearing?
So I just posted this at in the story at scorenorth.com that you can find right now. But the Vikings, according to the Over the Cap website, the Vikings started today $9.364 million under the cap, which is okay, but certainly not great if you plan on trying to make a big move or two. Okay. It sounds like what the Barr move should do is, in his restructure, it should take the Vikings to approximately $14 million below the cap. And now if we factor in, let's say, an extension for Harrison Smith and Shamar Stephen is let go, we are now talking about a team that could very well, by the time free agency officially starts, be approximately around $20 million below the cap. And that's how you make a big move. $9 million's nice, but you ain't making a big move. And so here's the only question, though, off this Barr extension.
Is that Joe Thuney calling?
Off the restructure.
Joe Thuney.
There's a whole different thread off that, because I'm going to warn you guys right now that there is a possible way this goes that I don't know that you're going to love. But here's my question on Barr. So it sounds like they went to Barr in the last couple of weeks and they said, will you restructure? And much like the Jets thing, if at first he's like, see you later, I'm done. And they're like, no, we're serious. But they weren't going to release him. They were going to trade him. And they were talking to teams that play 3-4 defenses where, by the way, I think he would fit in fantastically.
Dude, he really would.
About trades that I think could have got them, let's say, a third-round pick. And if they do that, that would have taken $7 million plus off the cap. Now, the problem there is the dead cash for 2021 is approximately the same. But nonetheless, do we like the fact that they are going to bring him back with a new contract? Or if you could have, gotten, let's say, a second or third round pick and jettisoned him completely when he balked, because in Anthony Barr fashion, it sounds like he came back at the end, just like with the Jets, right? Okay, I'll take it. I'll do it. And with the Jets, the Jets thing drove me crazy. Still does. Like, he called you and said, I'm gone. Okay, dude, you're gone.
So I think if the way this works out, like you just said, if they bring, so it sounds like you're saying they're going to take $5 million off his around $5 million off his 2021 cap number, right?
Yes.
And they keep him. And
yeah.
And I was going to say, and they get to keep him. Some Vikings fans might say, and they have to keep him.
That's why right? I'm asking.
But yes. I think Mike Zimmer loves him. Mike Zimmer and other smart people who watch what Anthony Barr does from a scouting perspective say, listen, like, yeah, some of his PFF grades are mediocre, and he doesn't get the tackle and sack statistics that maybe it would be eye popping, but he garners enough attention in the opposing team's game planning, and he frees up other players, Eric Kendricks, and maybe even players in the secondary to do their thing. So, like, whatever you think of Anthony Barr, Mike Zimmer loves him. Mike Zimmer loves him for his scheme. And if you were to have just flat out cut him and saved the $7.5 million or whatever it is, and also you'd have dead cap, you'd have to eat, like you said, you'd still have to find another linebacker. It's not like, oh, you get $7.5 million. It's great. Okay, well, is there anyone internally right now that you feel really good about getting like 1,000 snaps on defense next to Eric Kendricks? And some people might say, well, what about Eric Wilson? He costs money. He currently does not count toward the Vikings salary cap.
But Barr was not going to be cut. I'm talking about a potential 3rd-round pick. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to cut him. I would have been here's the problem with Barr now. 7 years, 2 of those years he's played all 16 games. He's hurt quite a bit.
Sure.
Like, he misses time. I'm just throwing it out there that in the Vikings trying to find a new direction here, possibly, and I'm going to bring up a scenario that I think is going to make people potentially puke. And I think it's how they might be trending. But again, because we're never talking now, thank God, about being good. Hey, the Vikings are going to be good. It's going to be fun. We're talking about championships. If there was a window here to get a 3rd-round pick with an aging player, he turns, I believe, 29 on Thursday. And he has threatened before to leave and then come back. I was really intrigued with that idea, not releasing him. That would have just been, I wouldn't like that. But the idea of possibly getting a draft pick for him intrigued me. If it was a 3rd or as high, potentially as a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, like 2nd-round pick, and that gives you your first 2nd-round pick in the draft. I gotta say, I like the way this played out. If they say $5 million to this year's cap, and now they have 2 linebackers solidified, they've got Danielle Hunter potentially coming back, and they might have to extend him. See where that goes. I'm okay with the way this is playing out, and I'm okay with Anthony Barr hitting free agency after 2021. That's fine with me. He should. I'm curious to see him play with a 3-4 defense. I would love to see him with like 2 years of prime left play for a 3-4 defense. I'm actually rooting for that to happen after this year.
But the dance is the same. It's going to be the same after 2021, right? It's going to be, I'm leaving you. Yeah, good. Yeah, don't let the door hit you in the ass, Barr. Okay, I'm sorry. Can I please come back? Oh, of course you can, Anthony. That's how this dance always plays out. It's driving me crazy. Like, just make your decisions. We are going to trade you if you don't take a restructure. I'm not taking a restructure. Okay, then you're gone. I slept on it overnight, and now I'd like to come back. Okay, that's great. We'd love to have you back. Just sometimes you got to kick the kid out of the house.
Oh. Declan, what do you think? So Judd wants the pick. I'm cool with this, and if he's out the door after a year and he saves you $5 million this year, I'm good with it. Where are you at?
Yeah, if this is his swan song, his last 21 season, if this is it for the Vikings, I'm okay with this. I just don't really see the point of paying a linebacker big bucks. And to be honest, if we're going all in, if 2021 we're running it back, Michael Pierce is coming back, Daniil's coming back, now Anthony Barr is coming back. Everyone's going to go down or go to the ship per se with it because if they want to bail, if ownership wants to get out of Zimmer and Spielman and Anthony Barr, it's going to be all a package deal. So this is literally all the signs are pointing that we are going to run this back in 2021 and we're going to see what happens. I still am skeptical on what that ceiling truly is if you're running it back, bringing back a guy who's coming off a neck surgery, bringing off someone that Anthony Barr is coming off a torn pec. I mean, do you really think you can go 12-4 or 13-3? I certainly don't think you can. I think right now you're maxed out at 10-6, pending what else you can do in free agency and the draft. But I'm much more curious about Barr basically playing his last season with the Vikings and then saying bye-bye after the year.
There is something kind of fitting about Spielman, Zimmer, and now Barr all aligned contractually, basically going into 2021. But I think you're right in that. I don't think they're just going to run it back like they've run it back previously. I mean, when they run it back this year, it's going to be with a full season of Danielle Hunter, ideally, and a full season of Michael Pierce. And those are very different variables than we saw last year. But I also think this means it's a full season for like any sort of Kirk Cousins rumblings and rumors. especially with Cam Newton signing with the Patriots, thus maybe blocking a Jimmy Garoppolo to the Patriots situation. It feels like they're getting set now to clear $20 million in free agency money and spend a boatload of it on offensive line. That's what it feels like to me, Judd.
And that's where I'll stop you. I can't throw out names yet, but I can throw out philosophies that are being discussed in Egan right now. And Phil, I think what you just said is brilliant. I agree. I love that idea. I love your idea because you know what? This offensive line has been a gong show for far too long. And if they were thinking the same thing that you were, I'd be like, okay, the Barr thing works out. That's fine. Clear the caps. Here's the rumblings I'm hearing. As I said, I can't reveal names yet, but I can reveal philosophy of action that the Vikings are going to pursue starting on Monday. And it does not sound like it includes necessarily a hard sell for a guy like Joe Thuney, but rather involves rebuilding, retooling, and coming back with the best defensive line you possibly can. And that what they want to do is they want to pursue a bigger name free agent defensive end to pair it with Danielle Hunter, which either means they're going to completely ignore the Hunter problem and or are convinced it's not going to be a problem. I don't know there yet because I personally think, unless there's been a resolution we don't know about, that it's a problem when a guy wants to be paid and he's really good and he has had a neck problem. But I think where the head coach wants the money to go, and we have seen that the head coach has incredible power when it comes to personnel decisions these last few years. That what the Vikings want to do starting tomorrow is their first phone calls are going to be to prominent defensive ends. They can bookend. They really thought, and it blew up in their face, and I don't know why they didn't know more, but Phil and Dex, they really thought that the Ngakoue idea was genius. They thought that, and they aren't lying. They thought Hunter had a tweak, like he was going to come back. Egg on your face. It looks stupid. But they believed that they had the formula there and it was right. Obviously Hunter did not play and obviously Ngakoue didn't fit, but it looks like we're going to go for round 2 of that as opposed to doing what we've been talking about for a good, 3 weeks here, guys, which is, I think we have all assumed offensive line. Doesn't mean they'll ignore it, but I think they're intent on fixing the defensive line. And that's a reflection of one thing, Mike Zimmer.
Well, all right. So much to unpack there. And wow. Judd Zulgad bringing insider, not just reckless speculation, but this is informed speculation, credible speculation from a former lead Vikings beat writer at the Star Tribune.
Oh, those were the
1500ESPN.com and ScoreNorth.com. We have a lot of fun and games on the show, but Judd has been one of the most plugged in people over the last 15 years to the local NFL scene. So I'm going to give you 2 interesting names here. I know that you can't, I know that you're not in a place where you're going to throw names out. I'm going to throw 2 names out. Mm-hmm. So Shaq Barrett is a free agent. According to Pro Football Focus, he's the 14th overall free agent. I think everyone saw with their eyes what that guy's capable of doing, and he was on national TV all the time, right? So he is expected to get a 4-year, $18 million per year average annual value contract with somebody. My guess is the Buccaneers would love to use that Tom Brady restructure to bring him back. But he's probably going to get the biggest contract of any edge rusher. I would probably cross him off the list. It's nice that the Vikings have cleared like $20 million. Potentially, they're on their path to clear like $20 million in free agency money. The name on this list that probably would be more realistic if they're going to take a big chunk of that money and spend it on a bookend edge rusher, Carl Lawson from the Cincinnati Bengals, 26 years old when the season starts. He's projected to get a 4-year, $55 million contract, so just under $14 million a year, $30 million guaranteed. Not a household name because he plays for the Bengals. They never play on national TV. But last season, he was 4th among all edge rushers in total pressures. It was Shaq Barrett, number 1, TJ Watt, number 2, and then Carl Lawson sitting there at 4, ahead of Joey Bosa, ahead of Khalil Mack, ahead of Cameron Jordan, Myles Garrett. He had, it looks like 723 snap counts last year and 64 pressures, so 4th in pressure. So That would be an interesting name, I think. And Mike Zimmer, even though he never coached him in Cincinnati, probably still loves the Bengals connections. So
that's probably exactly right. Yeah.
But if it was someone like him versus like if you're going to spend like 75% of your free agent money for you guys on edge rusher or like Carl Lawson or Joe Thuney, where would you guys lean? I would still lean offensive line.
Dex?
Yeah, Thuney. I just go out either because I want to see number one if it works because I think Joe Thuney is the best guard available, and if it doesn't, it can prove that everyone doesn't know offensive line either. Like it can prove the fact like don't spend ridiculous money on interior guard. So I think it's a no lose situation if they sign him.
So my problem is this: I think it's fine to pick your place of importance, but to me, if you're going to do that, the puzzle has to make sense. And the Vikings puzzle to me and how it's being constructed doesn't make sense because on one hand, you've got this quarterback who you're heavily invested in, who you're keeping, who you had a team or two call about, and you could have hit the reset and you're electing not to. And yet you have a head coach that wants to build on the opposite side of the ball, where, by the way, just because guys are going to come back, it should improve. But now it's as if the coach has said, we are going to go all in to have a shutdown defense in 2021, which is all well and good. But my question is, okay, that's fine. But so your forte is defense, but you're paying your quarterback a ton and he needs protection and you're not giving him protection. Mm-hmm. The philosophy doesn't make sense in my head.
I mean, in fairness to them, they also could upgrade. Like if they just found a slightly below league average left guard in free agency, like Austin Blythe keeps coming up. He was with the Rams, right? Like you could literally plug anyone in and they'd be better than Dakota Dozier.
Right. But that's a very, very, very low bar. And keep in mind too, you might have released your left tackle to sign a defensive end. Like the whole side of that line now is that O'Neal moves. Because if he moves, if you stay in-house and he goes from right tackle to left tackle, now right tackle, where guys have to be good now, is potentially weakened considerably. Like it just feels to me the way it's trending from what I've heard, like we're going to go back to the usual hodgepodge of we'll make it work. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. And then 8 games in, they're like, oh my God, it's not really fine, huh? And you're like, no, it's not. And this could be the second consecutive free agency period into offseason that we have basically, and it's not just we, it's a lot of people have said, what are you doing exactly? And they're like, oh, our cornerbacks, we'll coach them up.
Don't worry about it.
And then and then all year long, they said that they're fine. And at the end of the year in the press conference, they're like, yeah, we didn't do that right.
Are you talking about? You're using the cornerbacks as a?
Well, I'm saying last year we talked about you want to get a veteran corner, like you've got to stabilize that. Too many guys left to just draft guys and plug and play them. That doesn't mean that you can't do it with some of them, but you needed to go get a veteran. And I'm not even saying super high priced. I'm just saying a stabilizing force. And the Vikings are like, no, we don't. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. And then at the end of the year presser, Zimmer came out and flat out said we misjudged that.
Yeah. Kevin Milwaukee in the YouTube comments on the screen there says, sorry, but the Vikings are robbing Peter to pay Paul. No, they're robbing Anthony to pay Carl. That's what might happen here. Or Joe or whoever they want to sign. So, all right. So Dex, we had to crash your party here tonight because
that's okay.
Anthony Barr is going to restructure. And I will say before we shut up and let the Vikings fans jump into the room here, we're going to be all over breaking news all week. So you're going to get our daily Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily episodes, Apple, Spotify, scorenorth.com, the Score North app, YouTube. So you're going to get everything you normally get from us this week. And then we're just on super high alert for breaking news and any sort of speculation that warrants emergency episodes. So we're going to rock it this week, and we'll keep you guys posted on anything and everything Vikings. So cool.
All right, boys.
All right, Dex.
Good talk, man.
This is great.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
I get to kick you out of the studio. I've been waiting to do this for such a long time. This is awesome.
It's with pleasure. You know what? I'm done. I'm not restructuring, Declan.
Yeah,
I'm out of here. Please let me back.
We're restructuring. Please. We're restructuring, Judd. We're taking your base salary. We're converting it to a signing bonus. Sorry,
I
man.
didn't mean it.
Sorry.
The Jets were mean.
Mackey, I got a second round pick. I couldn't pass it up, so I got to get rid of Mackey too. So that's just how it rolls. Vikings vent line. Thank you everyone for sticking with us here. We have Zack, Arjun, and Derik who are about to hop in here. And boys, I'll get you all on the screen here. Usually I have a little pre-production meeting to kind of go over a little show prep and what we're going to be doing on the show today. We're going to do this on screen. So obviously I had an Anthony Barr question that I gave you guys via email to start the weekend that, hey, if you guys wanted to talk about this and Anthony Barr, would you rather have him or defensive end? So maybe before we go to that, and we have Zack, Arjun, and Derik, I'll start with Zack. Zack, what's your thoughts on Anthony Barr restructuring his deal and basically making him a free agent in 2022?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of glad that we didn't get any behind the scenes, because now we can all just kind of say what's on our minds as this has popped up. I think right off the bat, I was fine if they would have cut him. I didn't like that we were going to have to eat the dead cap, but, you get Troy Dye some experience. You let Kendrick start taking over the thing. I mean, he was, the fourth highest player on the team. And I think a lot of coaches and everybody's trying to, make this case that Anthony Barr was like the John Stockton of our defense or the Steve Nash, setting everybody else up. But at the end of the day, the stats weren't there. And so is he valuable? Yes. And I didn't want to lose the dead cap with him, but would I have been fine Eric Kendricks being our highest paid linebacker and rolling with some young guys? Absolutely. So the fact that he's taking less money, I guess that gives us a little bit more continuity, because, the Vikings loved that last year. But we got 1 year to roll it back with him. Next year, he'll be 30, a little bit, kind of longer in the tooth anyway. So I'm fine with him, going out into the free market after that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at too, man. I kind of would rather just run this all back in 2021, and if it frees up money going forward and you don't have to worry about dead money, then you may as well do it right now. Derik, I'll get your thoughts here on Anthony Barr. What do you think? Is the right move to restructure him? Would you rather see them just move on or trade and cut him? What do you think about Anthony Barr's restructure?
Well, actually, I got your email, and that was the first I had heard of it when I saw the Anthony Barr breaking news. And honestly, I was hoping when I went onto Twitter, it would say he was just released outright. I kind of wanted to just wipe our hands clean of him. I was super happy with the Kyle Rudolph decision, so I just wanted him gone. I mean, we don't know what he's making this year. I know there was some dead money if we released him. I was actually hoping for a trade, but I just, I think he's just damaged goods at this point. We've never used the guy right to begin with. He's always played in the wrong spot. So here we are again. We're going to basically be putting like a square peg in a round hole, and we're not running a 3-4, which, I mean, you guys have alluded to many of times. The guy's playing completely out of position. He gets caught in these mismatches by some smart offensive coordinators. They always get him isolated on someone that he just cannot deal with. You know what? I don't know. I'll take Kirill Kaprizov at linebacker. Let's go there.
I wouldn't hate it either, dude. The way he's playing right now, get him on the Timberwolves, get him on the Twins, get him on the Vikings. Absolutely. Arjun, who's all the way down in Australia, your mic's muted, I think, to start here, man. You just got to unmute your mic. But what do you think so far? Anthony Barr being restructured, good move. Obviously, Zack and Derik are saying I wouldn't have minded if they were moved on from him. What do you think about Anthony Barr's restructure?
Yeah, I'm sort of in the camp that I'm not a huge fan of Barr. I don't think he adds a hell of a lot to the team. I know there's all those, analytics that says that, he's really good at disrupting this and that when he's not on the ball. But I'm sort of in the camp that I was waiting for him to be gone. If it's going to reduce our cap hit for next year, and potentially get rid of him next year, I'm in favor of that. I mean, we saw what happened with our cornerbacks when all the vets left at the same time. That sometimes a veteran presence can stabilize that position. So I don't know. If they extended him by smoothing out the cap, I'd be less of a fan of it. But given that we can get rid of him next year, I think it's sort of a good deal for both of us, where he can say that he wants out next year, and we can say that, all right, well, we got 1 more year of him, and we can keep him in for his veteran presence, as long as he doesn't go after any wide receivers and he's just there tackling in a run play, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah, a little quick little production note for you, Arjun. I can barely hear. I can hear you really faintly, so I don't know if you had headphones plugged in or a microphone not close enough to you, but you're coming in a little too soft there. I was able to hear you here in my headphones, but I know some listeners were saying the same thing. But just kind of wrapping up your point too. I think everyone here is mostly kind of in unison too. it's one thing if you saw the production the last few years of him being able to get after the quarterback and paying them top dollar, then yes, it'd be justified for him to be here long term. But paying $14 to $15 million for a linebacker is just it's asinine right now, and especially when your quarterback is making as much as he is. You got Dalvin Cook, you have Danielle Hunter's looking for extension. It doesn't really add up to a good piece of success. We'll go to our next topic here. What's the one move you want to see the Vikings make in free agency? So Zach, we'll start with you. Is there any one you're looking at? And this can be, encompassing with draft as well. What's the one move you want to see the Vikings make in free agency?
I mean, for me, it's not just like one person. I think it's kind of the theme, which is the trenches. Like, as the closer you get to the football, the more important it is. And like D tackles, the guards, the center, like Bradbury's going to have a big year to step up in year 3 and either figure it out or we need to move on. But realistically, defensive tackle would be something that I think that we need to get back to. I remember, and I know that we have Pierce coming back after COVID, but I think back to the Williams wall and what that did of nobody could run on us. Jared Allen could just run free after the quarterback because you had that just run stuffers right up the middle. And I would love for the Vikings to bring back another huge D tackle to pair with Michael Pierce, not just say oh, well, we have Michael Pierce and we're just going to throw somebody else at D tackle. Even if we go pick up Linval Joseph again and have him run it back. I mean, if we're going to run it back, right, we're going to run it back with Barr. We're going to run it back with everybody. Let's go get Joseph again or let's go get a Dominican Sue, and just shore up that part of the defense. And that's going to give more time for your corners to cover because the quarterback's not going to have as long to throw. That's going to keep people off the linebackers. I know Anthony Barr is back now, but if you have a third young linebacker out there or even Kendricks, having them eat up those linemen allows them to run free and go get in the hole and make the tackle. So on the offensive side, obviously, we're all going to say guard. I would love for Joe Thuney, but I also know that there's a lot of guards available right now. So maybe you don't have to pay top dollar. Maybe you get that second-tier guy. I mean, at this point, anybody's an upgrade over Dakota Dozier. I would be an upgrade over Dakota Dozier. So, I'm good with that. Let's shore up the trenches, and I think that's going to take the team a lot farther.
Yeah, and before I get to Derik here, number one, Vikings Vent Line is sponsored by Corona Hard Seltzer. I forgot to hit that off the boat there. Corona Hard Seltzer is the only hard seltzer made with Pure Beach vibes. I'm rocking this cherry flavor today. We're supposed to get snow again. I hope that maybe overnight tonight, which just stinks. But Pure Beach vibe, it's been 50 and 60 degrees. I know second winter is coming, but at the same time, I'm trying to enjoy the Pure Beach vibe. So thank you to my friends at Corona Hard Seltzer. Zach, to your point about the defensive line, I mean, the Vikings have always been known for having very staunch defensive lines. I mean, I'm 28 years old. I believe you're in your 20s as well. For as long as we've been Vikings fans and watched the Vikings, they have always been so staunch on the defensive line, from the Williams wall to Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, the list goes on. And yeah, I mean, was it a big blow when you lost Michael Pierce or who decided to opt out for COVID and Hunter has a neck injury? Of course. But at the same time, you have to sew that up. You can't just have a gaping hole in the A gap with guys like Aaron Jones, who just re-signed with the Green Bay Packers. You need to be able to stop that run. So, Derik, I'll flip it to you. What is the one move you'd like to see the Vikings make in free agency?
Honestly, when I saw what was on the docket today for the questions, I thought about it, and there's been one guy that's been in my head ever since this whole free agency thing started. And you guys talked about it just before we came on. It was Carl Lawson. I mean, I think he's perfect for what we need. Perfect. You kind of stole my thunder with you, Judd, and Mackey. But here's what I got to add about it. Well, first of all, lifelong Auburn fan. So look, Carl Lawson, huge fan.
Love it.
Secondly, I just think we need to compliment 99 if his situation is okay. We need someone over there. Definitely. Ngakoue led the team in sacks. And what week did we trade him? 4th? Was it something like that? We generated no pressure off the edge. Zimmer is not going to be a blitzer. He doesn't like the blitz. He really, really wants his ends to get that pressure. Carl Lawson, this is all PFF. I took this right off of PFF. 4th in QB pressures in the entire league. 2nd in QB hits. The guy puts his hand in the ground. He's not a 3-4 defensive end. He's perfect for this defense. You can keep him on the field all 3 downs. He goes and gets it. The kid's a leader. He had captainship at Auburn. He's what you want. The kid plays aggressive. He's mean. He's physical. I mean, he's kind of he's an unknown name to a lot of people, but the kid is awesome. I mean, and he'd be well worth the money. He's going to help those young corners. I mean, they're still second-year guys. Yeah, Gladney and Dancer got a lot of time, but you can't do – I mean, DNs they're a cornerback's best friend. I mean, number one, yeah, I think he is the priority. If I wake up tomorrow and we got him signed, I'm elated.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have ways to get pressure on the quarterback, it's gonna make things a lot easier. And I'd rather see them spend resources on the defensive line or take with their first round pick, get an elite defensive lineman. You can find safeties. I mean, look, Harrison Smith was a first round pick, and he's obviously a generational player. But Anthony Harris was a UDFA. You don't have to waste significant resources and or assets to go find a complimentary safety, especially when you're playing along Harrison Smith. Like someone said on Ventline last week. I mean, if Anthony Harris's value, which took a significant hit in 2020, if he wants to come back on a cheaper deal, like I'm for that. Like, he made $11 million under that franchise tag. If he wants to come back for close to a league minimum or like for a couple $1 million or a make good incentive deal, I'd be for that. And I'd rather them do that than go and sign a big safety to a free agent contract. So Arjun, will maybe see if your microphone problems are a little bit better for this time. But what do you think? Do you think the Vikings should look at a defensive side? Do you think they look on the offensive side? What do you think they should do in free agency? What's the one move you'd like to see them make?
Yeah, sorry, is this a bit better now?
Just move a little bit closer. It's a little better than it was before.
Is it a bit better now?
There we go.
Yeah,
Bingo.
okay, cool. I'll just hold it up then. Yeah, look, it's a bit of a hard choice between the O-line and the pass rush. I mean, if you asked me before the Reef cut, I probably would have said the pass rush. But given, Cousins has the mobility of a rock and, you can't really move around, I'd probably lean more towards O-line, someone like a Joe Thuney. I know that Shaq Barrett is still available. I doubt we're going to get him. It looks like he's going to re-sign. But if we can get someone like Shaq Barrett or Trent Williams or something like that, then, the pass rush would definitely be great for that. I'm still leaning more towards, a Joe Thuney, just because I think with our offensive capabilities, you got Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and that Cousins loves his tight ends as well. I think that if we can elevate those positions and give Cousins the best chance he can to try and elevate the team, I think we're going to be better in that regard. I also trust Zim a lot more on the defensive side. I think we can probably draft someone on the D-line, even if it's a second or third rounder. We don't have a second rounder this year. I trust him a lot more on that end. I don't trust the Vikings organization to, develop an O-lineman. So in free agency, I'd rather take someone like a Joe Thuney that can come in and that he's going to be decent and plug in the play right there. So especially with Rudy gone, I can see Irv Smith and Tyler Conklin having a better role this year. So personally, I think I'm more in the camp of someone in the O-line that can really come in and elevate Cousins' game.
Yeah, it's a good point, dude. I mean, for God's sakes, they have not been able to draft a successful offensive lineman. And I mean, Brian O'Neill's nice. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't mean to sell him short. But I mean, you go back and after Brian O'Neill, like Matt Khalil was good for one season. Matt Burke was good. But I mean, you can really, if you think about it, they haven't hit even like an average offensive lineman at all in their last 10 picks. And in free agency, look, Riley Reef, yeah, I know it kind of had a bad and an awkward ending here, but he was a solid free agent signing. Obviously, Steve Hutchinson might go down as one of the best offensive lineman signings in Vikings history. He's a Hall of Fame guard in my book. So I would rather see them, go with Joe Thuney and see where it goes from there. And I know so many people say harp on the offense, and they harp on the offensive line, and the criticism is deserved. But I told Mackey and Judd too right before I brought you guys on, it's a win-win, because if he shows up and he plays and he's a top 15 PFF interior lineman guard, awesome, because he's going to sew up the line and give Cousins more time. And if it fails miserably, it can prove that this is like spending a boatload of money on an interior guard might not be your best move to do in 2020, because I think Dakota Dozier was so bad last year. Kind of reminds me of the Wild's goaltending from a year ago. Like, you can sign Cam Talbot, who isn't a world beater by any means, and he's going to be better. You can find a rookie in Capo Kakinen, and it's going to be better than last year. So I'm curious to see where it goes. Both Zack and Derik said they'd rather see on the defensive side. Arjun says maybe you sew up the offensive line. I'd be good with either one of those things. I'm curious to see where they go with the offensive line. Let's get to this little juicy, reckless speculation draft talk, because I had a friend of mine who was up at North Dakota on Friday, and she was watching the Pro Day. She works for a TV station up there, and she told me that Spielman was actually spending more time watching Trey Lance than they were. I forget the other guy who's blanking off the top of my head that could be a possible pick for the Vikings. But Trey Lance could be someone on the Vikings radar. It's pick 14. And Trey Lance is still on the board. Zack, I'll start with you. Do you think the Vikings should take a chance on Trey Lance at 14, or would you let him slide if you were Rick Spielman?
I mean, back to my first comment, like I'd rather stay in the trenches. But if Trey Lance falls and he's there at pick 14 and just thinking of where our quarterbacks are right now and the contract that Kirk Cousins is under right now, I would much rather be a year ahead of schedule than a year behind schedule. And so if Trey Lance is there at 14, I would pull the trigger on that. And obviously, I'm sure they're going to do all their homework. If he fits, what young Coob wants to do and those kind of things, like that's all going to play into it. But, I mean, Kirk Cousins next year, after this year, is going to be $45 million against the cap. I mean, the cap right now is 183. Even if it gets to 200, I mean, that's a quarter of your money is tied up with one guy. So, and just again, if we draft him, is Kirk Cousins going to step up to that next level and go from being a top 10, top 12 quarterback to a top 7? Because I think that's the difference of us, falling out of the playoffs or getting one playoff win and being out, and us, going to, the championship game or possibly even the Super Bowl. And if Kirk Cousins crumbles because this guy is, waiting in the wings to come take his job, then, I mean, he's not the franchise quarterback that everybody says he is anyways. So I say if he's there at 14, pull the trigger, get your guy. That's the future. You have him on the cheap for 5 years. And Cousins is probably going to be screaming at the mountaintop, send me to San Francisco, begging Shanahan to come get him. So that's fine. Then that $45 million gets freed up. And what can you do on a rookie contract with the quarterback for 5 years and an extra $45 million to build around him? I mean, the kid's got a cannon. We saw the pro day, throws the ball on a rope, can make all the throws that an NFL quarterback is more athletic, which is going to give, a little bit of help to our line. So, I mean, if he's there, I say I'd rather be a year ahead than a year behind on this, and I would go get our quarterback of the future.
No, those are good points, man. And I hate to be this person here, but I'm going to put on a Green Bay Packer fan hat just for a bit to prove a point that what Zack tried to say there. So they took Jordan Love last year. Everyone laughed at them, and honestly, let's continue to laugh at them. By the way, I want to make that very clear. What I'm about to say, we can still laugh at them for that pick because they could have obviously used a wide receiver to help out Aaron Rodgers or some type of piece to make things easier. At the same time, they saw an opportunity that there could be a successor here. And to be honest, 15 years ago, they did the same thing with Favre and Rodgers when they took Aaron out of Cal too. So we all might have egg on our face in a couple years. I still think there's going to be egg on the Packers' face for that Jordan Love pick. But at the same time, Green Bay knows what they're doing typically, and they might have had something special, and they saw something in Jordan Love that they're ready for the succession plan. And honestly, the same analogy could apply to the Vikings at 14 if Trey Lance was available. If Trey Lance is there and they're his guy and he was going to be morphed as a project dude, because Kirk Cousins isn't going anywhere. I mean, Trey Lance wouldn't be the week one starter by any means. I think there'd be extra pressure on Kirk if he got off to such a horrible start like he did in 2020. Yeah, there might be some pressure that Trey Lance comes in, but Jordan Love was inactive for all 17 games last year. So if you see the quarterback of the future and Spielman and them have identified it, then yeah, I think it's at least worth exploring and taking the chance on it. Derik, what do you think? If it's pick 14, Trey Lance is there, what do you do?
I mean, I think it's unrealistic, first of all. So, I mean,
okay.
Hypothetically, though, if it does happen, I mean, you got a decision to make. I mean, at some point, if Kirk Cousins is still on the roster, Declan, what's the date like that? If he's still on the roster, the next year is like $45 million. I don't know.
I think it's the 21st, so a week from today.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's the case, you can't do it at 14. You're going to have to trade back. You know what I mean? Get a second round pick, maybe another future second. I think it's just, if they do this, if it's last year and they don't give, Cousins the silly extension, then of course you do it. I mean, it's just kind of like for lack of a better term, they screwed themselves last year by giving him that extension. It was so stupid. I still remember seeing it. And I was just like, what? I was perplexed. I mean, I still don't like that extension they gave him. It was bad business in my book. And I mean, Cousins just was playing the game like he's been doing for the last 5 and 6 years. I mean, he knows how to beat this game. I don't know. You trade back and I want Christian Barrymore. You can see where I'm going. I want D-line. Yeah. I want that D line of force. So that's where I am. I would trade back if I was in Spielman's shoes.
Yeah, before I get to Arjun here, I think that's a good way to look at it too. If Trey Lance available at 14, it's not like it's a gun to the head. The Vikings have to make a decision. Someone needy below them could call up. How hilarious would it be if like the Chicago Bears were just like, no, that's our guy. We want Trey Lance, and Trey Lance goes to Chicago and it's just an absolute disaster with Matt Nagy. That's a win-win for the Vikings. You get a couple picks. You get to watch Trey Lance and Bears fans implode. Like it wouldn't be that bad of an idea to trade back if some quarterback needy team sees Trey Lance as their future quarterback. Arjun, what do you think? If it's 14, Trey Lance is still there, would you like to see the Vikings take it, or would you rather see them maybe trade back, kind of like what Derik said?
I'd lean towards a yes, but it sort of depends on who's on the board still. I mean, if someone like a big name receiver, Smith or Waddle was still on the board, obviously that probably won't be. I'd say, yeah, let's stick and stack up at a loaded position. But if someone like a Slater or Darisaw is still there, I would probably look to trade down and get our second round pick over Lance. I mean, my issue with Lance is that I don't think he's on the same level as Zach Wilson or, obviously Lawrence or the bigger name quarterbacks for this year. So I'm on the camp of probably at 14 just because it makes the most sense and he's probably the best player available at that point. I don't think it addresses a serious need at the moment. I think it was Mackey that said in a previous podcast that no team in recent history has won a Super Bowl with 13% of the team's salary cap or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. I mean, so obviously we're not going to win it with Cousins. Statistically, the eye test, everything shows that we're not going to win it. But I think if we wait another year and instead of going for a possibly kind of quarterback, either trade up or, we can't keep a $40 million quarterback which Cousins is contract cap's going to be like next year or 2022, on the book while developing Lance for another 1 to 2 years. So I think we're like 1 year away from Lance, but from replacing Cousins. But I think if he was there at 14, just based on draft capital alone, I'd probably take him. But if any of the other big name receivers were there, or even, a Slater or Darisaw was still there, I'd probably take them. The next tier down, someone like a Kwity Paye or, Rashad Bateman for wide receiver, I'd take Lance over them any day. But ideally what I'd like to see is probably trade down and recoup our second round pick, or trade up and make a monster slash, because at 14, we're not really here nor there at the moment.
Yeah, man. I think those are all good points. I think with the way things are going, like if you're going to take a quarterback, which by the way, I do think the Vikings should be in the market to possibly draft a quarterback, and that's not in a 6th or 7th round, Nate Stanley, UDFA, Jake Browning. If there's someone there in the 3rd round, I think the Vikings have 2 3rd-round picks. Make a decision. Like just do it. Like if I don't think Kyle Trask goes all the way to the 3rd round, I think he is a day 2 pick. But like if Kyle Trask was there in the 3rd round, you know what? Screw it. Take Kyle Trask. Like you may as well try to build a project quarterback there and see what happens instead of having Nate Stanley's and Sean Mannion's, rolling around, keep taking up roster spots. I'd rather see, them take at least somewhat of a highly touted college quarterback that knows what he's doing and not the Nate Stanleys of the world. Guys, these were some awesome takes here today on Vikings Vent Line. Thank you so much for joining us. Mackey and Judd had to, of course, hijack my show on Sunday. They texted me 10 minutes before and said, we're going to come on and we have to deliver our own takes because they couldn't even wait till Monday. There'll be plenty of more takes on Mackey and Judd on weekend statements, which we'll be doing on Monday this afternoon. Or Monday afternoon, which you can find on your podcast feeds and here on Score North Purple Daily Podcast and our second YouTube channel, that's Score North MN. Please hit that subscribe button. If you want to be on this show for future seasons, I'm taking some vacation this week. I will not be here in the driver's seat. Maybe those 2 hooligans who hijacked the show might be doing Vent Line next Sunday. But if you want to get in on the show for a future Sunday with me to do some Vikings Vent Line, hit me up on email, vikingsventline@gmail.com. We have a people in Cube at the same time. I'm building out a schedule so we can get all these Vikings fans in here to deliver some takes and talk some purple. So email vikingsventline@gmail.com. But before we say goodbye, I always do pick one winner to give 60 seconds to take the floor for theirs to make their final point. So I'm going to give it to my guy, Zack. Zack, you're going to be my winner this week for Vikings Vent Line. I proverbial give you this Universal Championship belt. So I'm going to give you 60 seconds here, man. Give me your best takes here for a minute.
Hey, I'm a huge fan of the Vikings, but a huge fan of the show, and I appreciate you guys opening this up to fans and giving us the opportunity to kind of speak our minds. My mentality is the same as the shows. I want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl. And I think what that takes is from the top down, everybody has to be invested. So from the Wilfs to whoever that head coach is, the GM, and then all the way down to us fans, we need to be understanding that sometimes the guy who's like our fave player isn't going to make it because, he costs too much, or it is not a scheme fit anymore, or it just doesn't make sense for this team. I don't think any championship team is just thrown together. It's a process, and we've been going through this process for a long time. I think when the Wills finally decide that winning a bunch of games just isn't good enough and winning a Super Bowl is more important, that's when the Vikings as an organization are going to change. It's sad to see teams like Tampa Bay, who is an NFL all-time losing organization, already has 2 Lombardis, and we still have 0. Seeing Carolina Panthers, going to the Super Bowl recently. It's time for this team to raise its expectations. It's time for the fans to raise our expectations. Good is just not good enough. We want great. We want a Lombardi, and the only way to get that is to show up and show out.
I love it, Zach. Beautifully put, my friend. Beautifully put. Arjun, in Australia, it's Monday there, right? Isn't it Monday?
Yeah, it's Monday at 12:30 p.m. over here. Yeah.
So we have takes from the future, per se, here right now on Vikings Vent Line. So we are foreshadowing what could be possibly happening with Arjun in Australia. Zach, you're in Minnesota, right?
I'm not actually. I'm in Chicago right now.
Okay.
I'm from Arizona, but I'm in the military. I'm in the Marines.
Nice,
and I'm
man.
stationed out here in Chicago for the next couple years.
Cool, dude. Well, Derik was also in Arizona. I know he just popped off the screen, but so it's honestly awesome. Every time we've done Vikings Vent Line here, I don't think we've had more than one person from Minnesota. Everyone's always been from somewhere else. We've had Paulford Skull, who's always in our YouTube comments. He's down south, and we've had people from Florida and Georgia, and now in Australia. I mean, for God's sakes, Vikings Vent Line is international, so it's pretty damn cool to see. Boys, again, thank you so much for joining us. One last shameless plug. If you hit that subscribe button in our YouTube comment section on Purple Daily Podcast, we appreciate it. Also, we have a second YouTube channel that's Score North MN, where we talk Twins and Vikings and Wild and Timberwolves. I love that. Be like Zach. Subscribe to both channels. And also, it's Pick Your Prize Month at Score North. We're giving away $100 every day to someone who registers on our app. It's through listening rewards. If you win that $100, you're then entered through another prize contest for a $10,000 Pick Your Prize contest. We're giving you $100, and then you're going to be possibly entered for a $10,000 prize pack as well. So that's right below in the comments. I keep doing this. Judd thinks it's really weird when I point down to the camera. I don't think it's that weird. I'm just signifying that it's right below in the comments. Judd Zolgad's got a dirtier brain than I do, I guess. But it's right down there in the comments, so you can absolutely do it. Derik, it pops right back on here. Derik, we're just wrapping up. You got any final words?
No, thanks a lot for letting me on. It's awesome. It's beautiful here in Phoenix, so it's great to be outside and
there you go.
Just talking it up. Vikings. I don't get to do it that often where I live.
Where in AZ are you?
I live in North Peoria.
Okay.
By Lake Pleasant.
I'm from Chandler.
Right on. I go there all the time. My son plays travel baseball. I'm always in the West Valley.
Nice,
Awesome.
Man. So we got Arizona, Chicago, Australia. I'm here in Minneapolis. Thank you, everyone, for joining on Vikings Vent Line. Again, if you want to get in on a queue, email me vikingsventline@gmail.com. We'll get you in on a future show. And Skull.
Skull, guys.
Cool, guys.